You'll have to forgive me if I get a little emotional talking about this song. It's called One of Those Bottles. It's the final song on my EP, and it's a tribute to my great-grandfather, June Hunter. I never knew him. He ended up taking his own life long before I was born. But over the years, I've grown to know him pretty well, between the stories that my family tells and some things that my grandma, his daughter, loaned to me to study about him a little bit, a journal and a scrapbook and these things. I feel like I have a connection with him. And family members have told me from time to time how a lot of my personality traits are kind of similar to his. And so yeah, he lived a really interesting life. Growing up where he did, in southern Utah, back in the, through the Great Depression, things like that, it was about as desolate and I wouldn't even say quite rural yet. It was just a poor mining town. And you read about the first time the railroad was built and the train came through, all of that stuff. He talks about it being this mighty beast, basically. And it's so cool, and it creates so much perspective to read from somebody who went through that, because times are so different for us. But he lost his father at a very young age, and survived the Great Depression. And one thing I really appreciate about him is when he talks about the Great Depression, he said, "We will probably never experience another time in America where neighbors truly looked out for each other the way they did." And that perspective was mind-blowing, because how do you go through not knowing if you're going to eat, not knowing what's going to happen, and come out of it with, I actually really appreciated that time. And I think that that's just an amazing quality. But as time went on, he was deployed to Africa during World War II, got injured, which would later come into his life. He had to get his leg amputated later on. And he lost a lot along the way. His brother survived the war, came back, died in a car accident. So just trial after trial, but he kept people laughing. All everyone ever says is how funny he was, how quick-witted, and he was, he was offered the opportunity to write jokes for a TV show at the time. It just was, it's crazy that somebody so happy could end up being so sad, but we see it all the time. And he still did what he could for his family. A lot of the stories start with, June was down at the bar or whatever. So obviously he enjoyed alcohol. And that can lead to being a pretty bad thing when you're struggling, and it's used more as a crutch. But it just, man, there's so many funny stories surrounding all of it. And time goes on. Eventually his wife dies, and she was everything. Virginia was everything to my grandpa June. And I think eventually, when all of that just finally got to a point, he didn't think he could do it anymore. And I think the message of this song is that there's someone out there that wants to hear what's going on. There's someone out there that wants to help you get through whatever it is you're going through. And that's my wish with this song, is I wish I could travel back in time and sit down with Grandpa June, have a drink, and just listen to him. I want to hear his stories. I want to know all the things that are causing him struggles, making him feel that way, and talk him out of it. Because there's just so much to live for, even when it feels like there's not. And that's what I hope with this song as well. We've reached a cool point, I guess, in society where there's not as much of a stigma attached. You look at those guys a lot of those veterans that saw the most horrific things in war, you know, even up to our most recent ones. And there was a stigma attached where if you weren't okay, then there was something wrong with you, you know. But how could you be okay? How could you go through all of those things and not ever have to talk about it? From the smallest things. I mean, you know, losing a parent, not that small, but you see horrible things in war, you experience loss that's just general in life, and it affects us all. But I think those generations, they dealt with it the only way they knew how, and any other way would have been taboo or, like I said, a stigma attached to it. And so that's why I'd be just like, listen, Grandpa, I'm here. I will hear everything you have to tell me, judgment-free, nothing. And he might have just said, you don't know any, you know, whatever. But that's where if I could convince him to share a couple drinks with me, maybe he could just get it out, and it would make the difference. It would be the difference literally in life or death. And that's what this song is about. Really cool thing about it is there are audio recordings at the beginning and ending of the song of his son Michael telling some stories about June and June's other son Kevin, my uncle Kevin, Mike's brother. So it's kind of an interesting way for me to pay tribute to all of the Hunter men who have affected my life, even the ones I didn't meet. So it's very personal to me, but I think we could all listen to it and think, you know, everyone out there has been affected by suicide at some point, and I think anyone would take that opportunity to sit down with a loved one, even a stranger, and say, listen, just tell me what's going on, because the world is a much better place with you in it, even if I have to sit here and listen for hours about what's going on. I can't imagine someone that wouldn't want to do that. So one of those bottles from my EP, One Drink, Two Drinks, is about here. Monday, December 16th, it'll be here. I appreciate you watching and hearing my message, and hopefully you hear the music, and let's go.